Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Maps and Graps. I'm so excited to be doing this show. I have tried to make an effort to really increase my content output as far as this particular show outside of the interviews. So hopefully, if you get jam-packed with Maps and Graps episodes, just know that I'm doing my best. But as always, I'm your host, Lyric Swinton. So excited to be here. And I'm so excited to finally have this particular guest on this show. If you watch the Dynamite book on Wednesdays, you are very familiar with her. And a lot of you have asked when she's going to be on Maps and Graps. And today is the day. And we finally got to connect in person this past weekend, which is what we're going to talk about. Windy City Riot in Chicago. We have Dani on this show, aka Miss Black Girl Wrestling.
Hello. This is scary. I'm scared of this.
Why?
The Dynamite book, I feel like it's like whatever. This is like, yo, this is lyrics, maps, and graps. I'm like, let me sit up. Hold on.
This is even more unserious than the Dynamite book.
Okay, cool. Then I can do it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And just feel free. Get all your hard R's off, and
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
So yeah, this past weekend we were at for Windy City Riot, New Japan. This is the biggest show that they've run independently on the Strong brand in the U.S. Packed out Wintrust Arena in Chicago. Also, what a time! I think it was a good time. I mean, I had fun. Did you have fun?
I had a great time. We took shots.
Yes, we took shots. It was fun.
We had our fun.
Friendship bracelets.
We passed around friendship bracelets. It was great. I loved it.
Yes, it was a really good time. I love going to New Japan shows in America. I feel like they're a completely different vibe than AEW shows. Just because I feel like AEW shows are a little too big sometimes. So like New Japan shows are small, even though this one was pretty huge. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a different vibe. I feel like you get a lot more time to like connect with other fans. Shout out to Keeping It Strong Style podcast. They hosted a meetup across the street from the venue right before the event, and allowed a lot of people to see each other, get to know each other beforehand, drink a little bit, eat a little bit. So yeah, I love New Japan shows in America, and this by far was the biggest card they've ever done. Definitely.
This was my first New Japan show.
Really? So, yeah, you told me that. Yes.
Yeah. So I was very excited. And like you said, I've been to a bunch of AEW shows. This felt, even though it was a pretty big venue with like hella people, it did feel more intimate. Because also people that watch New Japan, like you have to, in 2024, you still have to go out of your way a little bit to seek out, So yeah, it was cool. Everybody was super nice. We made lots of friends. Our whole section, we're besties now. They have matching friendship bracelets, as do the rest of every Black person I could find. But yeah,
for real. I agree. I feel like New Japan, I feel like AEW cards can be kind of like this.
She was there too.
Yes, she was there too. Hi. How are you? Yes, you can come on camera.
Riot.
Oh, what a hoot it was. What a hoot.
Yes, that's literally what we're talking about. Yes, you were there too.
Great.
I was gonna say, would you go back to another New Japan show, like another New Japan pay-per-view?
She doesn't even really watch New Japan like that. So this is an important answer.
Why are you using that as a mic?
You need a microphone.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
What I think is that New Japan fans are a lot more hardcore too. So it's just like these are the real big wrestling fans. Obviously, AEW fans can be more hardcore, but I think a lot of times in AEW you're still going to get those casuals here and there, but New Japan fans are a lot more hardcore. And so one thing that I think that also made it more intimate, which wasn't quite a great thing, but it happened anyway, was the fact that New Japan did not give a flying fuck about production, and they had that tiny stage,
that little ass stage.
They had their 2 banners, and they said, "This is it. This is what you get, guys. This is it. We are here for wrestling."
Do you guys Do you guys know about inflation? Okay. It's outlandish. I don't blame them. Okay. But no, it was yeah. They said you're here to watch wrestling. That's what we got. We ain't got shit else.
And here's the thing. I am such a fan of stripped down production. I feel like wrestling has gotten overproduced. I am so sick of all these LED light boards and barricades and stuff like that. However,
I like them.
I did want a little bit more razzle dazzle. Like, this is your biggest crowd. Wow me, surprise me, shock me, woo me. Something a little, give the girl something, very much something. But they didn't care. But that was fun.
It's like, you know what it feels like sometimes, like when you go like prom dress shopping and you just kind of want to be over with because you just like I just want to go to prom, so you just like pick one. When it's like, okay, had we waited a little bit more, spent a little bit more money, we probably could have left with something that we appreciated more. The production probably could have been a little bit better, had we invested a little bit more in it. But at the end of the day, this wasn't what it was about. It's about the big dance.
But you know what though? What I will say, this is one benefit of stripped down production to that extent. It shows who really has aura and who is hiding behind presentation. And that's real. And that is real. That when in environments like that, you can tell who really has aura.
Who are the people here to see?
Exactly. So without any further ado, let's get into it. There was a brief pre-show. At first, there was Matt Vandergriff versus Zane J. This was a short match. These are two New Japan Academy graduates. Really short. Nothing to write home about. And honestly, I don't even think they had real entrances. All of a sudden, I remember I looked up from my phone and people were in the ring. I said, oh.
They did. They walked quickly, but they had they had the little entrances. Yeah.
Yes. But the match that people were really here to see for the pre-show was the women's. And there was Alex Windsor and Trish Adora versus Mina Shirakawa and Viva Van. I was a huge fan of this. Fun fact, nerd moment. Every woman in this match represented a different country. So Viva Van is Vietnamese. Mina is obviously Japanese. Trish Adora is American. And Alex Windsor is British. So,
wow.
That's your fun fact.
United Nations.
We go all around the world. We go all around the world. Like in Cheetah Girls. Yeah. I feel like this was a great showing, especially that prefaced something that would happen later in the night. One for Alex Windsor over here in the States. Mina Shirakawa, this was a perfect bow on her U.S. tour after killing it just about everywhere, from Stardom to Ring of Honor to AEW. Viva Van has been an accomplished New Japan Academy graduate, and Trish Adora is just about everywhere. And it's about time. She always does.
She always do. Yeah, she was the one that, well, maybe just because my brand is Black Girl Wrestling, but she was the one that stood out to me most. We knew how amazing Mina was. Was waiting for Alex Windsor to show me something, and she did. But who stuck out to me the most in this match was definitely Trish.
Absolutely. And also that pop when Mina's music hit, it's very clear. It seems like she's being positioned as the female face of Bushiroad, which I think is a great call. She has one of those personalities. She has the charisma. And that's another thing too about like when we said about the stripped down production, shows who has aura and who doesn't. She's one of those people. She doesn't need the lights, etc. When she comes out and does that, it's over, guys. It's a wrap. The world is hers. And it's really cool to see how quickly the American market has really gravitated towards her. Like, it feels like you would not be able to tell, like, this is like her first full week, wrestling here in the States, but she's been killing it. And like you said, Trish Adora has been put in some very high stakes matchups recently versus a lot of stars. running kind of, what do we say, the Queen Aminata gauntlet, which makes me think that a big win is coming for her soon. And I'm excited for it. Obviously, we've been seeing like the infantry, her tag team partners. They've been, showcased more heavily, both in Ring of Honor and AEW.
She's next.
Exactly. Lots excited. It knows. For real. She better be.
I'm not playing.
Not playing at all. But it's a lot to be excited about. Trish Adora is a great person to invest stock in. I had the fortune of seeing her wrestle Aja Kong on December 1st last year for Ashe Wrestling. And so I think that, she's blessed. She's blessed. It's about to rain down for her. I'm so excited. And then between the pre-show and the main show, we had Rocky Romero come out and announce that he has been appointed the new vice president of talent for New Japan of America. Big pop. Big, huge, amazing pop. I want to be Rocky Romero when I grow up. Rocky Romero is currently getting checks from about 3 or 4 different wrestling companies right now. He keeps it back.
Let me hold some. Rocky, we go way back. You know me. Maybe you don't, and that's okay, but you will soon, and we should connect, and you should let me have one of those checks. No, he came out and said that, and at first I thought I misheard him, because I was like, there's no way this man got another job. He has so many jobs. And I was also a little bit drunk, candidly. So I turned to the guy next to me. I was like, did he just say? He said, he sure did. I said, wow, Mr. Overemployed.
Keep a job. Wow. I'm gonna be honest, like Rocky Romero, and I've gotten to interview him before, so if you look on my YouTube, you can find it. But truly, he's a guy that I really look up to in wrestling and that I consider an inspiration, because I think he embodies everything that wrestling should be, which is a melting pot for different styles, people, talent, promotions, for collaboration, for cooperation. And he really embodies that in everything that he does. And I want to be like him when I grow up, truly, because right now he is the forbidden door. Like, he is the forbidden door of negotiating these relationships between AEW and New Japan and CMLL, Stardom, all of these different places, all these relationships we're excited about probably wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for Rocky.
He's kind of that girl.
I fear. He's kind of like that. I don't know. Then the show actually kicks off, and we started off with Ren Narita versus Minoru Suzuki. This was short, but I'm gonna be honest. This is the match that I think that Ren Narita should have had a long time ago. Him and Minoru Suzuki have a lot of history. Obviously, they were in the Strong Style faction together. And now that Ren has joined House of Torture, there was nobody, I feel like, better that could really kind of whip him back into shape than Minoru Suzuki. And also, if you've never seen Minoru Suzuki live, I feel like for every wrestling fan, experiencing Kaze Ninare live is an out-of-body experience. It's just, and to experience it in a place, and I've experienced it before, but to experience it in a place like Chicago, which is such a famous wrestling city, it was special. It was just, have you ever gotten to hear Kaze Ninare live?
I have not. And when I tell you, I was standing there grinning from ear to ear. This was a match that honestly they could have gone out there and stood in the middle of the ring, and I was gonna have the time of my life. Like, Suzuki is he's just different, And you talk about aura, like, come on, come on. Yeah. So honestly, I was having in the first match, I was very much having my fangirl moment. Very much, so I couldn't tell you move for move, bar for bar what they did. House of Torture, she's never been my thing, Ren Narita's never really been my thing, but match was cool. It wasn't particularly something that stood out to me, besides the fact that I was like, oh, Minoru Suzuki's really, really cool.
And you know what? I will say, I am on the record a proud, obnoxious, loud House of Torture hater, and that would never change. However, I think that Windy City Riot is the highest I've ever been on Ren Narita. I think that him by himself doing the House of Torture bit was a lot more bearable than having Yujiro Takahashi, Dick Togo, Evil, and like this crazy band of buffoons out there. Like, especially because, you know, if okay, you gonna get a chair? Yeah, well, murdered grandpa's gonna snatch that chair out of your hand and he's gonna kick you. Okay, yeah. It's like it felt a lot more manageable, and he felt more like more of a legitimate threat than he's ever felt on his own. And so I really appreciated that. So I was higher on Ren than I think that I've ever been, particularly. But you know, and I feel like this was a good win for him here, especially because Minoru Suzuki is obviously a veteran. He doesn't need to win. No. Ren needs to win, but I'm gonna be honest, there's very few people that I'm comfortable getting
with him
getting by Ren Narita. So, you know, I feel like this was a great compromise. It was a great compromise. You know, everybody goes home happy. Yay! Up next was the women's. And
best match of the night.
You thought so?
Yes. 10 toes.
No, you know what? Now that I think about it, I can understand why you feel that way. It's definitely top 3 for me. It's definitely top 3. I really liked the main event, and also I loved Umino versus Jack Perry. I did.
Okay, well, here's what I'll say. Right, the other 2 matches I loved as well, but I loved them for things and for the environment more so than I think what was actually happening in the ring is the conclusion that I think that I've drawn. So I was sitting there watching this match, being like, damn, this match is a banger. Not damn, this whole, you know, this whole 15 minutes is a, you know, yeah.
Going back to what we said about presentation, Aura and Hudon, Big Steph, 3 belt Steph. I mean, it's the time I almost choked on it. Like I almost gag.
There's no air in the room. She has it all. The breaths are gone. Look, she is not someone I have had the opportunity to see wrestle a whole bunch. And I was super excited for it because I'd heard only but good things. You know, only great things. She is her and a half.
Absolutely.
Like first of all, coming down, there's very few people that come down the ramp and you're like, oh, they could beat my ass. And they might, you know, like they might jump over this thing and beat the brakes off me. She was she walked down. I said, oh, okay. You know, I guess class is in session. And then her and Azumi got to cook it. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh.
I would also like to say this too about Azumi. Azumi, I've gotten to see her wrestle before. I've seen her wrestle twice in Japan, but both of those times were her either in like trios types matches, like alongside Queen's Quest. And don't get me wrong, she felt legit in those matches 100%. But what we've seen in these last couple weeks, I think, especially with Yutami Hayashishita leaving, you know, Stardom, and then you have Saya Kamatani as like kind of doing her own thing in Stardom. Queen's Quest, the future is kind of like a question mark. Azumi is kind of really broken out on her own and become like, you know, if she feels like a single threat again. And so between that match and then her going to Collision the next day and giving Toni Storm the best match of her timeless era
by far.
She's that girl. And the thing is, the young queen is 21 years old and she is a ring general. A 21-year-old ring general. Some people got, and I think one of the comments that I made about Windy City Riot compared to like some other shows is that I feel like that show specifically it felt like we saw a lot of people who have been talked about as the future for a long time finally become the now. Like they finally feel like the top people. It felt like that with Jack Perry. It felt like that with Shota Umino. It feels like that with Azumi. It feels like people have been calling her the future at the cusp for a long time. But she finally feels like, oh, she's the now. Like if she doesn't hold singles gold by the end of this year, what are we doing? Like,
yeah. And I will say this, right? Azumi's quickness is like otherworldly.
Absolutely.
The way she was transitioning from move to move is not a pace that you're going to see attending a lot of North American wrestling shows. It's just not. And I was sitting there because I'd seen more Azumi than I had seen Steph. I was sitting there and I said, wow, Steph is also deceitfully quick. You know, she was right there with her just in terms of pacing, and then that added element of strength, you know, that added power that she has. So while I was sitting there in awe of Azumi, as we all should be, I just kept going back to Steph because she was the one that I was like, this is aura. Whatever y'all think other people have, she has it
in the bag.
You know, in the bag. I'm like, I don't understand how she's not champion of the world. Now she's got all these titles, but she should be like president of the world.
She needs like more. She like it's crazy.
Like, we gotta come up with something else.
She has 3 belts and she still needs more.
Not enough.
And you know what? I feel like this match was so good because I think that their styles complement each other so great because, you know, Stephanie is obviously a luchadora. The lucha style is very quick. It's very agile. It's very like, you know, it's very rapid. And Azumi is the high speed queen. And so like, and very rarely do these two get to wrestle when they're wrestling internationally. Very rarely do these people get to wrestle people who are on their level of speed. Like even one thing that I noticed in the Toni Storm match in Collision, Azumi was going fast, but she wasn't going as fast as she could. She still slowed down a bit. Like, you know, like, and because I think, I truly believe if she went as fast as she really could, I think that the crowd might have passed out.
Yeah.
But in this particular match versus Stephanie, she was going at her full speed. Same thing with Stephanie.
Stephanie was matching her.
Exactly. And and I love seeing matches. I think sometimes in international matches, we want dream matches. And I think a lot of times, like the performers have to adapt, which can be great. But I love the matches where performers get to be 100% themselves, can hit as hard as they want to, can go as fast as they want to, can really maintain all of the things that make them special, you know, without having to like make concessions too much for one thing or another. This is incredible. And girl, I knew she
them chops. I was sitting up there. I was sitting up there in my nosebleed seats going, ow. She is so talented. And I'm sure everyone that has been watching her and singing her praises, deservedly so, is going to be like, oh yeah, Danielle, of course. This is my first time seeing her wrestle. So I cannot harp on it enough. I'm like, she was fantastic. Yeah. Well, my first time in person. But yeah. I watched that whole card. I watched Mox become IWGP World Champion, and I left thinking about Stephanie.
Real. And I think like I look back to that New Japan Strong Women's Championship tournament from last year. And it's possible that she may have been the person who benefited the most from it. She may have been, especially when you think that like Mercedes gets injured afterwards. Willow, like, you know, she's really hot for a while and then her push kind of dies down. Momo Kogo gets to be Manami Toyota in the States, and then in Stardom she goes back to being a scrub. I can't quite understand it.
I don't get it, but
Stephanie, she's just been going on this upward trajectory ever since. And she hasn't even scratched the surface of what she's capable of. And like, I just remember when she won the belt in Korakuen Hall, And when she hit Julia in the head, when Julia was trying to strap her up, I said, girl, oh my God.
She's one of those people, you watch her wrestle, you're like, she doesn't know this is fake.
She doesn't know this is fake.
She doesn't know this is scripted.
I said, girl, Eddie Kingston would love you. Eddie Kingston would love you.
Oh, for real.
Eddie Kingston, Pac, like they would love you. They would love you. You do not know that wrestling is not real. But bravo, I'm interested. Actually, no, I was about to say I'm interested to see who the next challenger is. No, I'm not. I know who it is. I know who it is. Afterwards, Alex Winter comes out and says that she's conquered the UK scene and she's now looking for something more to make her impact. She challenged Stephanie Vicaire for the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. As somebody who has been following along Alex Winter's career over the past year, I'm very excited about this. I know some people might not be as familiar with her, and some people are already writing her off as, oh, she's just Will Ospreay's girlfriend. Listen, she has the goods. Like, she legitimately has the goods. I've gotten to see her. That was my second time seeing her wrestle in person. The first time I got to see her at the Rev Pro 11th anniversary show versus Hyan and Mickie James. And that was all in weekend. She's been through a lot. She's came back from injury and she hits hard. She has a very mean demeanor, which makes her a great heel. And this year specifically, she has one of my favorite women's matches of the year. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend going to see it. It was from the Revolution Rumble card that from Rev Pro that happened a few weeks ago. And it was a dog collar match.
Yeah, I've seen so, yeah.
And let me tell you, I've seen a lot of dog collar matches. This one is 100% fitting. The girls got gritty, the girls got gory, the girls got bloody, the girls got nasty. It was fantastic. Dani Luna is fantastic. Alex Windsor is fantastic. This felt like a blood feud. And I feel like for people who say that they want stiffer, meaner, more aggressive women's wrestling, Alex Windsor is for you. And her versus somebody like Stephanie who doesn't know that wrestling isn't real, cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know enough about Alex Windsor to like actually comment on whether or not the match is going to be good or whether or not, or the caliber or anything like that. I'm definitely hopeful. When she came out, I was sort of neutral on her just because I just don't know that much about her, So I am looking forward to watching the match, and I've seen clips of that dog collar match, and everybody has said, especially because they don't let women do a lot of dog collar matches, that one's superb. So yeah, I mean, I hope it's great.
Absolutely. And so I'm assuming that this match is going to be for Resurgence, which is on May 11th, and it will be in California. So that is the next New Japan Strong pay-per-view. Moving on the card, there was the New Japan Strong open weight tag team title for a corner match. Listen, I'm gonna be honest, I can't really tell you what happened in the match. There was a lot happening. By then, that was when the freezing started to set in for me. And I was just shivering. I was really cold. And I could not focus to save my life.
I didn't think it was cold down there, but Lyric was in her special seats.
I was on the floor.
And the temperature was bad.
It was listen, by the closer you are to the floor, and like the thing is, there was no padding on the floor. It was just straight.
Yeah.
It was straight chairs on the ground. And I was freezing cold and I could not even focus. But the result of this match and the post-match, I loved. But you say your thoughts first.
This match was super fun. It was chaotic because there were so many people. There were bodies flying everywhere. This was the match that Brittany and I were sitting there and we kept calling out for like different spots. And the guy in front of us literally turned around and was like, "You guys are sick." We were like, I was like, okay, let me shut up a little bit. But yeah, this felt like one of those, over the top. People call it Spot Fest, but I don't think that's fair because I had fun. I had a great time watching this match.
I think that the word Spot Fest has just such a negative connotation, but I don't think that that's always a bad thing. If you have this many people in a match, so it's a tag team title 4-corner match. So that means there's 8 people in a match. It's 10 minutes long. Guess what? There's no time for this to be a technical wrestling, masterpiece.
Get the jumping.
Spot Fests are a great thing. Sometimes it's a great thing. And so I don't think that should be a bad thing.
You heard it here first, folks. No, I mean, I don't disagree. I loved this match because I was there. Mm-hmm. I don't know how well it would have translated if I was watching it like on a stream.
Yeah.
But I think that's just one of the benefits of being able like to be in person at some of these things where you're Absolutely. Like, oh, I'm having fun because this whole place is fun right now. And then of course the victors made my heart happy.
Yes. Listen, TMDK. I have had to watch TMDK lose. And I've been upset probably since this time last year after watched them lose to Aussie Open. I watched for the IWGP tag titles. I watched them lose to, Bishamon. I watched them lose to Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii. I've watched them lose for just about everything
you can lose. They lost.
Title in New Japan that you can lose for. I have seen it, and I was sick of it. And so, at this point, to be honest, this match could have been a 1 out of 10. But as long as the result was TMDK being the victors, I would have been okay. And also that what I also really loved about this was the post-match segment was dastardly. It was nasty. It was disgusting. I feel like West Coast Wrecking Crew and Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler probably came into this match with the least amount of popularity compared to Gorillas of Destiny and TMDK. But this made them memorable. And I think that one, Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler teaming together at all is huge, considering that their rivalry is what kind of carried the Strong brand for so long. Mm-hmm. Then two, I think that West Coast Wrecking Crew is so underrated. And so West Coast Wrecking Crew attacking Tom and Fred Rosser after this was insane. They cut off Tom Lawler's hair.
And they ate it.
And they made Fred Rosser eat it.
And that's when me and Brittany were like, yeah, do it again.
And I feel like what's really been kind of missing from the New Japan Strong shows is like those specific rivalries that make the brand feel unique. Like, because Strong is supposed to feel different from mainland New Japan. It is. And so I felt like that was really missing for a while ever since the TV show ended, of like, what are those rivalries, those feuds that you get in Strong that you can't get in Japan, those things that make Strong special. And I feel like this feels like one of those things that makes Strong stand out. So even if you weren't like maybe familiar with these guys, or maybe if you weren't like excited to see these guys coming into this show, you are probably very tuned in to see like, oh, when are they gonna wrestle? Because there's no way that you can get your hair cut off and put it in
and hold that.
And not have
I would take that.
I personally, I would take that. Like there gotta be a receipt for that, and I gotta see that. And so I feel like this was the perfect type of wild angle to immediately get people invested in. Oh, are these guys going to wrestle at Resurgence next time? I need to see that. And also build contenders for the New Japan Strong openweight tag team titles to make those belts feel different from the IWGP, belt. So
I will say, to your point, I do think that can be something that I know people fear is like, okay, Strong is becoming a lot like, you know, regular New Japan. But I think this spot, more than anything, more than even like other Strong shows, this spot and this ending just reminded me of like North American indie shows. And maybe that's just me, but I also felt like, hey man, know your audience, know where you are, you know. And I think so maybe the two go hand in hand as far as, you know, making a solidifying an identity for New Japan Strong, you know. But also I think it's good to kind of understand the people that are coming to your shows and what they want to see. And to your point, like, yeah, you know, people who may not have been all that tuned into the tag match or might have thought that there was too many people, which I heard people say around me, like, but you watch that, you remember that, and you will want to see the payoff of whatever that is, you know.
Absolutely. And I think like that is one of the thing about Strong, though, of just bringing in, being one of those places for, how do I say it, indie talent to have kind of like a way into New Japan, especially over the pandemic. Like, that's what Strong was. Like, West Coast Wrecking Crew, huge on like the West Coast indies, right? But like, you know, haven't really kind of had that breakout moment as far as like general wrestling fans. And so I do think like, you know, I felt that part kind of like felt intentional. I mean, like, you know, maybe that's what you're catering to, of just trying to build that base of, I do think like, especially as I feel like certain titles are going to be phased off of the Strong shows, as far as having the IWGP belts always defended on Strong shows. And so, I mean, obviously with Mox being champion right now, that's like that's going to be different for right now. But in the future, like, I think they're trying to build that Strong audience.
Standalone. Yeah.
And also the thing is too, think about where they're going for the next Strong show, right? Resurgence is in California. West Coast Wrecking Crew. They're going to be in front of a crowd that knows them, you know, like that is really familiar with them. So I think that it was a smart call. And also Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler are always have been the guys, those go-to reliable guys for the Strong brand. And so I'm excited. I'm interested to see what they do. I wonder if they I feel like they have to add a stipulation.
Oh, you have to. You ate his hair.
And also, but the thing is, like, I feel like this Resurgence card is going to get bloody, because like there's so many matches that are going to have, feels like we already have one match with a stipulation, which we'll get to later.
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna be honest.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I wouldn't hate more. I feel like
I love blood.
New Japan cards, I feel like do a really good job of stacking stipulations on a card. And I felt that way last year with Resurgence. Resurgence last year, I felt, had a lot of matches that had a lot of crazy stipulations, and even if they didn't have stipulations, they ended up having, like, you know, weapons and blood and crazy stuff. And so I feel like I like it.
I think
I'm a sicko. So
oh, I was gonna say I'm a sick freak. Everything that you can hit somebody with, I'm yelling for it. All right. If it was up to me, like, we would have to have the CIA out here for some of the spots that people were doing. 100%.
And taking shots.
But yeah, I mean, I think New Japan does do pretty well with stipulations. I think in comparison to like other major companies where you see and they mean sorry. But yeah, I got a notification on there. But yeah, I think New Japan does better in stacking stipulations just because they mean more, you know?
Yeah.
In other companies, it sometimes just feels like we have a stipulation and have a stipulation, or because the wrestlers can't carry the match without one.
Wake that up. And I think also too, that's one of the things that makes the Strong brand distinct, because mainland New Japan is not known for stipulation matches at all. Think about like the steel cage match. It was the first steel cage match in New Japan in 30 years, something like that. So, you know, stipulations very rarely happen, and that's one of the things that makes the Strong brand distinct. It makes it feel like, okay, it's this Japanese American fusion product. And so I think that's one of the reasons why they're able to do it well. So I'm excited. Up next, we had the match that I think that we're going to talk about for the rest of our lives. And that was none other than Shota Umino versus Scapegoat Jack Perry. Listen, I want to say this. This could have gone really bad.
Yeah.
And as the closer we got to this match, I was going over every bad scenario in my head. Like, I was just like, oh my God, this could go so bad. Yeah, this could go so bad. Because let's just be real. At this point, we think we know, but we don't know Jack Perry anymore. We genuinely don't know him. We genuinely don't know him. Even the stuff that he's been doing in New Japan with the House of Torture stuff, that's in Japan. Like, we haven't seen him in the West in this type of context. Outside, obviously, he attacked Shota Umino, but that happened here in the US. But truly, we haven't gotten the full Jack Perry experience since All In last year. And I was there. And we really went from Jungle Boy, Real Glass, and Hook on the card. That's the last time we really kind of saw him. To he came out and I said, oh my God, is that Aura? I said,
is that Jackson? That's not his name.
Keep in mind, like I said, I was freezing, mixed the match. My blood ran so hot during this match. I felt nothing. Nothing.
So many things to say.
I felt on fire. It was just crazy, the energy. It felt, and truly it's one of those things that I think I told you this afterwards. It's one of those nights where you get to say as a wrestling fan, oh, I was there.
Yeah.
It felt like the building was vibrating. It felt
absolutely.
Oh.
And
the crowds. And then just like that. And the thing is, I was expecting 100% hostility. I knew.
Because I knew I would be there, and I knew I'm loud as hell.
Well,
so I knew there would at least be one.
And I mean, yes, of course, I knew I was going to cheer for him, but I did not expect the scapegoat. Oh, cry me a river. Oh, cry me a river. I said, what is happening?
It was the most fun I've had in a long time.
Insane.
When I tell you, everybody in my section I had been talking to before, we had all been chilling. We turned into different people.
Absolutely.
This man came out with the Chicago flag wrapped around him, and everybody chose a side.
Real.
You were either rocking with Chicago Man or you was rocking with the scapegoat, but everybody had to pick one. There was 100%. A girl sitting behind me, shout out to her, I gave her a friendship bracelet, who was there with her partner, and I think she had never been to a wrestling match. I could hear him kind of explaining things to her. And I hear her at the top of her lungs start yelling, is that Jack Perry? Is that the one you've been talking about? And I'm like, see, everybody's in it.
It's global.
It's global.
Scapegoat worldwide, baby.
There was the 2 rows in front of us. We had a row full of guys that kept yelling, CM Punk, CM Punk. And you would just hear sucks that come after it. And you would hear, and I'm like, oh man, first of all, we went to your city. They said they don't know you.
Okay. He comes out in the Chicago flag. All I could hear is, I don't know, have you ever heard the word bulletproof by Young Dolph?
Yeah.
That's all I could hear in my head. Bulletproof by Young Dolph. He said 100, how the fuck you miss a whole 100 shots? Like, y'all, the fact that it's so crazy coming in y'all city in Chicago, drops the flag. Keep in mind, you got your bulletproof security guard.
You got your riot squad with you.
Comes out surrounded by the Navy, then turn around, got cry me a river on the back.
I was sitting there and I was, and look, we talked about, on the Dynamite book, we talked about what the play might be, sort of what the consequences or fallout might be of airing that footage on Dynamite. I can tell you, I think that had a massive impact on his overall, on the way he was overall received that night, because And I think it was as simple as, there was a chant. There was, "You got choked out," and then just as loud, there was, "No, he didn't."
No, you didn't.
It was, people who maybe hadn't, well, we kind of said, but like everybody had pretty much decided where they fell on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing that footage either reaffirmed it or you just kind of ignored it, And this night, you could see the clear divide, and it was so much fun. And I just want to say credit to him because 100%. Because he played it up. He was a fantastic character that night. The whole thing, and shout out to Shota too, because it did overshadow a lot of the actual in-ring action of the match. But I thought that was necessary, and I thought it was more fun. I think it was inevitable. But I was gonna say, like, more credit to him because he didn't know what he was stepping into.
No.
You don't know how you're gonna be received, and it couldn't have been more split, I don't think. The cheers and the boos. People were saying online that I was like 90-10. It was like 80-20. I'm like, I don't know, y'all. It was.
I would put it more so like, and especially by the end, I think we started out probably, let's say 80-20. I'd say I started out 80-20. By the end, to be honest, on the probably 50-50. And I'll be honest, I think that's it. I think that's an exaggeration. I think that the good ended up outweighing the bad by the end. And to be honest, you know what that reminded me of? When the Elite first wrestled in Chicago for the first time.
Yep.
After and they got that crazy reaction. But the Elite is the Elite. And I think, like I said, the Elite is truly elite for a reason. That's what separates the good wrestlers from the great, of being able to adapt to whatever environment that you're in, being able to get the crowd on your side. Jack Perry. They
could never make us hate you.
Do you understand how sick I would have been in my stomach, sick as a dog, if my city was screaming for to do my finisher? It's crazy. There were men behind me who had been screaming CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk before, and was just like, Jack Perry. By the middle, don't talk. GTS. I was just screaming just to scream. He said, I had so much fun. He's such a fun guy.
That was me and Brittany, because we were sure enough. We were like, I gotta be honest. I don't care that much. I don't know these people. I love wrestling. Everything else that happens backstage is really not of interest to me. I don't know y'all, but Brittany and I, we love to yell and we love to chant. We were the ones, Brittany specifically, that started the scapegoat chant in our section. And then it carried, and then we were all of a sudden we were the scapegoat section. All right. It was one of those things where you're like, I just want to be a part of it, yes. And how rarely do you have, a moment like that or a match like that where everybody's just like, I just want to be in it, and I think when he hit that GTS, bro, had me absolutely weak, because the guy in front of me was like, he didn't do it right. And I said back to him, I was like, nah, because that shit don't work. That weak ass finisher. And then
also it made Shota look like a hero for reverse it. Yeah.
To reverse it. And I was like, nah, because this shit don't work. And as soon as I said it, I was like, why'd I say that? I don't care that much. But it's because I'm so I'm so in this moment. I've chosen my side. The lines have been drawn. And scapegoat, it's you and me, I guess.
In that moment, it's just like, I put my tribalism cape on.
Absolutely.
I put that shit on. Absolutely. I did. It's so crazy because the man in my section who was screaming for Jack that night, he found me on Twitter after. He said, yes, remember we fist bumped during the show because those guys around us were screaming? Do you remember? I said, yes, sir.
Allies.
And I think even I could hear guys saying who are big CM Punk fans afterwards. They came away from that, and I heard them clearly saying "Oh man, no, he's legit. He's a star." And it's one of those things to where if you have any type of integrity in your body, whether you love him or you hate him, Jack Perry felt, like I said, he had been called the future for a long time, but that night he felt like the now. He felt like a big I think same thing with Shota too.
Oh,
I want to see him look so confident. Like, you know, Shota sometimes it's like he has all the ability, but we rarely get to see him like put all the pieces together. But like he looked so confident.
Because he knew he had to step up in the moment for the match to even be thought of, you know, because everybody was so caught up in everything else going around the match that I'm like, but at the end of the day, like this to me, this was the show, you know, not to say that, you know, they said, I already named what my favorite match was. And then Mox had probably my favorite moment. This was like, you know, this was cinema, as the kids say. But yeah, I mean, I thought that this match, I love to see Shota look good. I really do, you know, and both of them I think came in with the understanding that they had to step up in the ring because so much else was going to be happening outside of the ring, and they were right.
A match done well, in my opinion, has two winners, and even though Jack Perry took the pin here, he was 100% a winner. I think Shota was a winner. Him getting the pin here helped for obviously things that we saw later in the match. And then some people were like, I hate the handshake at the end. It takes you out of it. I'm gonna be honest, nobody's ever going to think about that handshake ever again. No, that's not going to be what they did it. They did. And it's just Jack, you know, clearly his New Japan run has come to an end, and it did exactly what it needs to do. And that is why excursions. The AEW roster is so stacked now. Guess what? You can lend some of these guys off to other places. The Lee Moriartys, the Lee Johnsons. Some of these guys could really, really benefit. If you don't want to put a belt on Daniel Garcia right now, send him to Japan. Put him in the G1X.
Send him my number. Sorry, go ahead. I'm just throwing all the options out. You know,
absolutely. Like if you know that you don't plan on putting that belt on Daniel Garcia anytime soon, put him in the G1 Climax. Dude, like literally, the possibilities are endless.
Especially because right now, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just gonna say, especially because right now, New Japan's looking a little scarce. You know,
absolutely.
So if there was ever going to be a moment, it would be now, you know, and you know they do it with the odd one out, you know, but I mean I do think there is some merit to the argument. I think the billionaire said, you know, that not wanting to have New Japan become like an AEW promotion in Japan. So I do think there is some merit to that. Not everybody can go. All right.
Absolutely. Everybody can't go. And I think that's what made the Jack Perry excursion so cool is because, like, you know, sending one person at a time and letting them have their one distinct story and do their one distinct thing, I think is a great thing. Like him, you know, doing New Japan Cup, beefing with Shota, going in the House of Torture. And he essentially didn't become Jack Perry in the sense of saying, I'm Jack Perry and so New Japan revolves around me. He enveloped himself into what they were doing. Now, does that mean that I agree that he should have gone in the House of Torture? Y'all know I hate House of Torture. No. But he immersed himself into what they were doing. And so, like I said, if you can have people, same thing with Eddie Kingston doing the G1 Climax. It's not like Eddie Kingston saying, I'm from AEW. This is my little shit now. No, like, I think that you know, sending one person over, like same thing. It looks like what they're doing with Anna Jay right now. It's like it seems like she's probably going to go to Stardom soon. And making it realistically enveloping these people into what you know what's going on here. I think it's a great idea. Hats off to both men. I think the coolest thing for me is like going to a wrestling show and loving it so much and being dead exhausted. And I remember I didn't get back until like 1 a.m. Yeah. And I still rewatched that match. I went on New Japan World and I rewatched that match because it was that special. Like it was just that special. And I knew that I wanted to see how like how did it come across for everybody at home. Yeah. And also listening to it, that's why I can't say that it was like a 80-20 reaction. Even going back to listen to it at home, I didn't realize that the Jack Perry stuff came across that clearly. And like for people who are watching at home, which was literally, I'm sorry, like the visual of him coming out in that Chicago flag, that's an iconic wrestling image that
with
we are
the Riot Squad in
out.
front of him.
With the Riot Squad, it's the imagery. And that's, like I said, real hoopers, real aura. It don't matter if they got these strobe lights, these LED screens or not. Real aura shines through. And that was it. That visual, insane. 10 out of 10. Show the Uno, future ace. That's what I'm talking.
Real chefs, get in the kitchen, start cooking. And he did. But I will say, the last thing on the Jack Perry thing.
Yes.
I've given him props. I'm going to give him one more set of props separately. Because this whole situation got so big and so much bigger than I think he probably anticipated. I think a lot of us as fans would have anticipated. This could have been a career, altering thing. And do I think it's going to change his career? Yes. Do I think it's going to hurt him in the long run? Absolutely not. Based on the way that he's handled it and based on the way that he's responded. And I think that night at Windy City Riot was just a prime example of, okay, so embrace it. So take it in, even though, your own personal feelings about what might have happened, and feeling like you maybe necessarily didn't do anything wrong, but this is the situation that you're in. How can you embrace it as a wrestling character? And he absolutely has.
Absolutely. And I think another thing too of, man, last week, man, people was writing AEW eulogy. I'm talking about the eulogies were written. The company was dead. People said,
dead?
I have never seen people said this is despicable. It's so unprofessional. It's so there's no show why they're dead. WCW 2000.
They're killing themselves.
He's done. Jack Perry's never going to be able to show his face again. People called it. I think truly that is what whether you don't have to agree with me or not, but that is what alternatives are supposed to do. Alternatives are supposed to do things that, guess what, the other companies the mainstream company would never do. Alternatives are supposed to push the envelope in the way that the mainstream would never do. It's in the name, alternative. So releasing that footage, whether you agreed with it or not, WWE would never do this. Of course, exactly. They would never
do. Guess what this isn't?
This ain't WWE. This ain't Texas. Woo!
Ain't no hold on. You like that one? and yeah, we talked at length about airing the footage, about not airing the footage. Absolutely. Oh my God, have fun. Because I can promise you that if you watched that footage on Wednesday and then went to Windy City Riot, you had the time of your life, regardless on where you felt about it. It was as far as entertainment goes, it was absolutely top tier. I don't care about morals. I want entertainment.
I think not even just the entertainment aspect of just if you can get, the thing is, if it was 100% just hate, booed him out the building, okay, maybe it's just one of those things of just like, okay, maybe it's go away heat, maybe it wasn't worth it. But this is a guy who went into his biggest ops territory 2 days after the footage was released and won over at least, let's say anywhere, depending on how generous you want to be, anywhere between a quarter to half of his haters.
I said at least a third. I said at least a third.
At least a third. Okay, yeah, that's fair. They're right in the middle. That is insane. And I think also it's one of those things to where I watched the entrance alone and I immediately tweeted, I said the footage was worth it. It was 100% worth it. And it's one of those things to, guess what? It gets people talking. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things to where, guess what? AEW gets to say, we create these type of reactions, these type of young stars. Because let's just be real. Very few stars under the age of 30 are getting that type of crowd investment or reaction. Of when we talk about building new stars, very few people are getting that type of genuine, like, guttural reaction of either love or hate. And being able to say, we got that shit here that you can't get nowhere else. It don't matter if you it don't matter who you got. We got that shit that you can't get nowhere else. And it gets people in the conversation. And if you walked away from that feeling like AEW was dead, that would be honest. You're no fun. You're no fun for wrestling. You're no fun. You're no fun. Unless like even like the merch, he's had to restock his t-shirts like 3 times. The scapegoat merch keeps selling. When the hate don't work, they start telling lies.
Now you tell me when I'm telling lies.
Hey, wake up! What about time? What about son? Hey. Them merch sales, I'm gonna be honest, and for everybody who love to talk about ratings and numbers, look at them merch sales. Let's talk about that. Keep getting sold out. He had to add new designs. He had to make some new shit.
I went to your city and they don't know you.
I went into your city.
You know what it's like? It's like, was it a couple months ago when Lotto and Ice Spice was beefing? And Lotto went to New York and filmed her music video on Ice Spice
Sunday
Street.
service,
Yeah.
and had a motorcade of 20 black Suburbans. We pull up our Sunday service.
This is my city now.
Really, truly.
Love me or hate me, who's in this mug getting the people talking?
It's that type of thing of where Jack Perry, it's certain people who are always going to be associated with certain cities for their entire careers. Jack Perry in Chicago is now always going to be intertwined.
Yes.
For the rest of his career. And some people thought that was going to be a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But God, it
was
turned around. And it became favor. Because favor ain't fair.
Hello.
Even it's so funny. I remember Shota started doing the thing, started doing the Jungle Boy.
I said, uh-oh.
People started cheering dumb shit. People started cheering Luchasaurus. What? It's that type of thing to where wrestling fans just stop caring about. Because I feel like sometimes at wrestling shows, don't get me wrong, people cheer, people boo, but a lot of times it feels like, oh, you're saying your lines, You're saying your lines. Like, oh, this is my part, so I react. Like, this is my part, my line. Mm-hmm. That felt and I've been to a lot of wrestling shows. That felt real. Like, that felt real.
Because there was real world implications and real world circumstances that informed it, that they took advantage of in a storyline, which I don't think you should do every time. But I think this situation had gotten so big that there was no way that you could just not address it, Absolutely. And so I think that as far as in the aftermath, as far as releasing the footage and then the way that Jack Perry has handled it, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, bro.
They turned him into you, and I'm gonna be honest. This could have all been avoided. This truly could have all been avoided if y'all had kept y'all mouth shut on that WrestleMania press tour. This could have really all been avoided if everybody could have just been quiet. And now, guess what? You done turned the boy into a murder.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's what happened. You turned him into a murder. You couldn't leave it alone. You couldn't be quiet. You can say whatever you want about it, whichever side you are. Guess what? I highly doubt any of this would have happened if everybody could just focus on WrestleMania during the WrestleMania press tour. But you just had to keep talking about it. Had to keep talking about it. Guess what? Now, guess what? He's a martyr. Congratulations. So that's that on that. The Jack Perry in New Japan experiment, we could consider it a success. Next, after that, let's talk about another experiment. The Mustafa Ali experiment. I'm not going to lie, y'all. For me, there were 2 legacy games. Actually, no, I'm lying. There were 3 legacy games on this card of make or break situations. One was Shota Umino Jack Perry. And guess what? That one was a rousing, riveting success. And the second was Mustafa Ali versus Hiromu Takahashi. And so we know the story of Mustafa Ali. He had been begging for his release from WWE for a long time, saying that he wants to be uncaged, saying that, you know, he knows his talent. He knows who he is. He wants to bet on himself, which I'm all for. Okay, I'm all for that. And says he wants to wrestle the best. He's going on this world tour. He comes out with this Mustafa Ali 2024 campaign. And I'm going to be honest, the rollout was excellent. Like, starting in January, like the video and everything. And then outlining his dates. Excellent rollout. And then, obviously, this was the second match that was announced from Windy City Riot right after Mox Naito. Him versus Hiromu Takahashi, who, in my opinion, is the ace of junior heavyweight wrestling. Probably, who would you think is?
I'm just sitting on it.
Okay. I would say he is the ace and probably the most popular junior heavyweight wrestler since, I would say, Jushin Thunder Liger, especially for New Japan. He's the ace of that, ace of the junior division, and which is a whole nother thing because New Japan has not adequately prepared for a future after him, but that's a whole nother conversation. And so I've seen some of Mustafa Ali's performances since becoming a free agent, and I'm not going to lie, I haven't been particularly moved. I haven't seen anything that says uncaged. It feels like everything I've seen so far is stuff I could have seen respectfully on 205 Live.
All right. That 205 Live is gassing it a little bit.
I'm serious. I mean that in the sense of it still feels like a match. And for the most part, everything that I saw, it felt like anything I could have seen on a random cruiserweight match on 205 Live or SmackDown or something like that, a WWE TV match. Like, he still seems very much locked into that style. And for some people, to be honest, it takes a while to come out of it, especially when you've been wrestling in a place for years. And that's what I've said. People like Jon Moxley are an anomaly. To be able to jump straight into New Japan and immediately not just adapt to, but excel at the style, very wrestlers can, very wrestlers have, and very few ever will. So, you know, I'm all understanding of taking a while to acclimate because the indies, everything, that's a whole different context. So, you know, sometimes it takes a while to reacclimate.
You know, what I'll say is, I think to that point, I think it is too early for me to pass judgment on whether or not it works. Because to be completely honest, I was so high off the last match, you know, and so amped up after the last match. Was I sitting there really, you know, thinking critically and analyzing everything that he was doing? Not really. You know, I wasn't tuned all the way into this match, which could be an indicator itself that, you know, that maybe things aren't entirely clicking, because no matter what no matter what the cooler is, like, it has the potential to be a banger, you know. Yes. It always does. But, you know, I like to your point, I like the presentation. Yes. I think that he is talented. This night didn't really do it for me, but I'm not crossing off the run as a whole. I was hoping to see a little bit more, or just a little bit more, to your point, to just like to make him stand out, you know, because I think on a card full of incredibly talented people, even with a great presentation, which not everybody had, he did not particularly stand out.
Yes, I'm gonna be honest. It was a legacy game for me. I'm gonna be honest, just because it's already the best of the Super Junior lineup is already lined up, and so he wasn't on it. I think we would be having a very different conversation if he was on it. So, like, he primarily wrestles in TNA. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not probably gonna watch that. And so I think when I say legacy game, I meant, so like, if I didn't see something in this match that really stood out to me, I will not be seeking you out. You know, I'm not going to go out of the way to like watch your matches. We probably won't cross paths. You probably won't be on any cards I'm looking at. I will, you know, or anything like that. If he was on Best of Super Juniors lineup, which he's complained about not being on, which is, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't even, actually, to be quite honest, I don't know what's going on with the TNA New Japan relationship, because that's a big question mark. You know, they didn't do Multiverse United this year. I also wanted to see Leon Slater in Best of the Super Juniors. That didn't happen. So that's a big question mark. But I just felt like, one, it started off as a comedy match. And I'm going to be honest that typically when Hiromu goes really hard on the comedy bits early on, how do I say it? It's almost like, I don't want to say like he don't believe in you, but he don't take you seriously enough to, like, let's say, let's hoop. And then like match didn't really pick up until like the last 5 minutes, and then you want to bleed and stuff. But by the time like the blood start flowing and everything, and you know, people like the real sickos are getting excited, the match is over. I said,
wow. I will agree with that, and that I think that this match, and particularly as Mustafa Ali gets, you know, establishes himself outside of a world of WWE, I think this match itself needed an identity. It needed to either be a comedy match or a serious match. And I don't think that his character is in a place where both make sense or is going to be all that well received. You know, I think because had you just done the comedy match, we could be able to dismiss it as like, you know, it was just like, you know, we'll watch another one and see. Or had you come out here and hooped, you know, for real, we could have had a conversation about, you know, maybe some critical analysis of, you know, whether or not we were all that interested in it, which obviously at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we're interested in. You live your life, you live your truth, you know, just whether or not it's for us to make that discernment and to make that judgment. But since it was somewhere that kind of lived in the middle, which is hard to do anyways, I don't think that this was good for him.
No, and it's also like one of those things too of just like, one, Hiromu Takahashi is Hiromu Takahashi. Yeah, he can do comedy and he can hoop. Like, you know, we know, like I said,
and we know that.
Yeah, so like he's gonna bring out Daryl with the abs, which was funny, by the way. That was funny.
He's shredded,
but he's also one of the greatest wrestlers to do it. Definitely by far, I think one of the all-time greats in junior heavyweight wrestling. So like he's
got nothing to prove.
Yes, he has nothing to prove, and also he's earned duplicity in the sense of he can switch his style up. He can be whoever. Like, you know, Mustafa Ali, like, you know, I think has been extremely talented. However, has never truly found his footing just about anywhere. And so as far as like, okay, this is who you are, like this, you are this, you are that. You're just essentially a very talented guy who has never been booked efficiently or never really put in the right place. And so I'm trying to figure you out. And so all these extra things while we're trying to
get this match didn't help us figure you out.
And also truly, and some people like feel some type of way about this, some people don't. And I felt similarly around the Nick Nemeth match. But we'll say this: New Japan is a whole different style. I feel like it's different if it's AEW, because AEW at the end of the day is still kind of like this hybrid sports entertainment wrestling thing, and it's like on television wrestling, and so you know how the American style. But New Japan is very distinct. I want to see wrestling, like, and not just wrestling. I want to see top shelf wrestling, that type of stuff that makes me say, ooh, wow, amazing. Especially if you have to think like this is the biggest match that you've had essentially since, you know, being a free agent, and you have essentially the perfect opponent to make a statement against. And especially like also Hiromu Takahashi is also in kayfabe kind of going insane right now because he, ever since losing the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, like he's been like losing like his mind and trying to find who he is outside of being a champion. And so the fact that you know that you already know as a wrestler that you are going to be going over him in this match, a great match would have made you the talk of the town because you're already beating Hiromu Takahashi. So that's a huge thing. But I felt like the match itself was not worthy of him actually beating Hiromu Takahashi because I don't feel like this did anything for him outside of just saying, "Oh, I have a win over Hiromu." I don't think that this did anything for him to make it be like, "Oh, wow, we need to start a campaign right now. Get him in Best of the Super Juniors. Yeah. Get him a junior heavyweight title match or something like that." We didn't come out of there saying any of those things, and I felt like we should have. That's the point. Especially, like I said, you beat the ace. Mm-hmm. You beat the ace. You got to pin the ace. And so why doesn't it feel like that? Why doesn't it feel like you beat the ace and like it's this big thing? It just feels like, oh, a match happened. Mm-hmm. So that's just my opinion on it. But I think, like I said, great gowns, beautiful gowns, great presentation. And the same thing with blood too. Like, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I put this last thing on. Same thing with the blood too. Of just like, I feel like for WWE, wrestlers coming out of WWE, I feel like bleeding is a big deal. Especially, I think that's the first time like he's really bled. Like, you know,
they just want to bleed.
It kind of felt like, you know, it's just like, oh, we're just throwing. That was one of the times where I felt like, oh, just throwing blood at the end of the match just to try to add a little bit of razzle dazzle when that intensity could have been their entire time without blood. Or maybe it couldn't have. I don't know. But it just kind of felt like just trying to add things just for the sake of adding them at the end rather than telling a cohesive story from top to bottom.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I'll say one more thing before we move on. Saying all of this, but I really am rooting for him. I think that he is an amazing talent that has gone underutilized for so long. And I really do think it's just an identity thing outside of WWE because I fully see the vision of when it all clicks, you know?
Absolutely.
I like the character. We know you have the goods, you know. This match was not like you said. This match, I didn't leave this match thinking that he benefited all that much from it. And it could have been a huge thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. I feel also too of just no, I'll wait to say this because it's going to come up again. It's going to come up again, so I'll wait. Up next, we had the Riot Rules match. So obviously, Gabe Kidd and Eddie Kingston both got to pick partners with 3 partners each. So we had Gabe Kidd ends up going with Clark Connors, David Finlay, and Kenta. Eddie Kingston ends up going with Jeff Cobb, TJP, and Homicide. I will say this. I'm looking on Cage Match, and the rating is fairly low. And I understand. And the reason why is because New Japan was not prepared to shoot a match like this at all. And when I was even watching in the crowd, I think the live experience was so much more enjoyable than whatever people must have been getting at home. Because I just knew, even like when I was reading on Twitter, people saying like, oh my gosh, like I can't see anything. Truly, if you weren't in there, I can understand
I get it.
This match sucked. But as a person who was there,
I had fun.
This shit rocked.
I had fun. I don't know what to tell y'all. This shit was fun.
It was not. They weren't prepared to be able to shoot because truly, motherfuckers was fighting everywhere.
They don't do that for real. Exactly. Like they don't do that.
Enough cameras. They didn't have enough cameras to catch it all. Like that's why I tweeted. I said, I hope y'all noticed, but Homicide is up in the stands right now, beating up Gabe Kidd
right by us.
There's people literally on the side of the ring. It was full chaos. Carnage. It really felt kind of like it's one of those things. It felt like a anarchy in the arena. That's what it felt. Very much so like an anarchy in the arena. And so I get it if people weren't particularly high on it. If you were watching from home because you only got to see maybe like 20% of it. So
But hey, man, I don't it. It was the whole match, and that's part of Eddie Kingston's charm. One of the many reasons why we love him is just that motherfucker want to fight. All right,
real.
And this match, it seemed like everybody on both teams just wanted to fight. And sometimes it can be that simple. Obviously, Eddie Kingston and Gabe could have a running storyline, but the match itself, that's what it came across as. Just saying that audience in the audience, as a fan, like you said, everybody flying everywhere. When they pulled out that table and they didn't use it, I thought there was going to be a riot. Because obviously they were building to the table spot, but people were not satisfied. Everybody, it was another one of those moments where everybody is so in it and so like you're at a wrestling show, which sometimes sometimes on wrestling that is being televised, or sometimes, it doesn't have that same feel. This felt like, like a...
They said, fuck the hard cam.
Nah.
Literally. Literally, fuck the hard cam. And I you know what? It's one of those things to where I realize that I have a theory, and I think that I'm right. I'm almost positive that I'm right.
Well, everybody thinks they're right.
I am positive that I'm right.
Okay.
That a lot of the people that you see grift online and just complain online about wrestling, they don't experience live wrestling often or at all. Because if you actually go to wrestling, like if you actually go to wrestling and experience wrestling, and especially I feel like, and this is one of the things, like I'm not like harping on WWE fans at all, but if you've ever been to a WWE show, it very much feels like you are just a bystander while
they film the show.
While they film the show, right?
Mm-hmm. And AEW can feel like that sometimes too. Less often. I've been to both
less
shows.
Often, yes.
Less often, but yeah.
It the pay-per-views I do feel like are much more better as far as being an interactive experience, but especially if you've like been to a TV, it can often feel like you're just a bystander while watching the show. However, like if you've been to an AEW pay-per-view, but specifically like for a New Japan show or even just indie wrestling or stuff like that, you feel a part of the show. And I feel like if you get to experience the dopamine that live rabbit wrestling gives you, like, I don't think that you could really like just be evil and nasty and rude on the internet all day. I genuinely don't think it's possible.
Fun. And it's you bitches can't have fun. Homicide looked feral. He looked rabid. Okay.
Yes.
You know how much fun that is to watch?
And for the audience to get bloodthirsty too, and like literally for you, you'll make your best friend that you didn't even know 5 minutes ago, and just like, give me more. Let me go.
Put him through a table. Yes. Jump off the ladder. That's what this match was.
There's truly nothing like it. Like there's really nothing like it, and I truly believe that. A lot of people they get so nasty because like they haven't seen live wrestling. And I'm not saying the answer is to like,
are you calling people poor?
I don't think about being poor, because I truly think that like a fun wrestling show you can enjoy from the nosebleeds. Like a show like that, like Windy City Riot, I think that truly, if you were in the $20 seats or if you were in a $300 seat, I think that the vibes were so immaculate. I think that you would have had a great time.
They transfer.
And I think same thing, like I said, like you get the same feeling at indie wrestling, right? Like at indie wrestling as well. I'm such a big proponent, and I've even noticed, even for me personally, I think the reason why it was so hard for me to kind of like, especially like once I got older, like after high school, to about 2022, so 2016 to 2022, it got much harder for me to sustain my passion for wrestling, like stay in wrestling when I wasn't going to wrestling.
Yeah.
Like when I wasn't going to wrestling, like, maybe I'll go if like, WWE's in town, or, like this before the AEW even exists, but like, maybe I'll go up there in town, but like watching and that was before I ever started traveling for pay-per-views and stuff, but like watching TV every week, it's so easy to get jaded. You see one bad thing you don't like, and it's just like it's over with, etc.
Exactly.
Or even it's one of those things to where, but if you know that you have like a live event to get looked forward to, like for example, like something like there's going, for example, like last year when AEW was pissing me off a lot of time, like, I would be like, what, this is hard, but I know I'm going to this, and I know that at the end of the day that there's going to be something on this card heading into Full Gear that I'm going to like, that's going to make me so happy, or I'm going to I'm so excited for this death match. And that was one of the things too, because I remember heading into Full Gear last year, I was unhappy as hell. I was not a happy camper, but I said, you know what? There's going to be something on there for me, and I shit you not, that Texas death match, Hangman Swerve, was one of the most greatest out of body experiences ever. It's one of those things to where, how do I say it? There's nothing like once you get to a wrestling show, a couple matches have gone by, the alcohol has worn off, and you're sober, and then a match happens that makes you feel high as a kite. Because I truly believe that wrestling is a drug in a sense, like done correctly, you will get high. You will ascend. There's nothing like whenever I tweet, I am ascending, I am. I mean it. And typically that is happening at a point where everybody is completely sober, the liquor's run off, and 9 times out of 10, they probably shut the bar down. But the wrestling, this is insane. I'm gonna be honest. I can't really tell you what happened. It was just a car crash of and it was amazing. I will say this though. Number one, Clark Connors, you are incredible. And the fact that you have not gotten a shot at the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship yet is insane. And I wish you very well this year in Best of the Super Juniors. And 2, Gabe Kidd is a leader. And David Finlay looked like a scrub next to him. And I'm not saying this as a David Finlay hater. David Finlay just truly felt forgettable. And it's gotten to the point to where it's so obvious to where they got to be making some type of storyline out of it. It has to be some type of storyline implications, because it's not even hideable anymore. It can't be hidden.
Just being honest, he's done nothing to me. I just don't like Gabe Kidd. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a reason. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I'm sure, I just have never, he's just never been it for me. So honestly, I preferred to see this kind of match. Because when they first said it was going to be Eddie and Gabe Kidd, I was like, oh, okay. And then it was just chaotic, and then it was just, So I mean, as far as where he goes from here, where David Finlay goes from here, I don't really care. I wish him all the best, but it's just not for me personally.
You know what? And that's real. Sometimes I wish more people would be just honest about that and just be like, you know what? Guess what? This isn't.
I'm like, honestly, he could have came out there and did a 6-star banger, and I still would have been like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. But not everything's for everybody. And if more people were honest about that, then maybe people wouldn't be so miserable. Just watch things you like.
That's real. Clearly this isn't over, because the match ended up being, I think Gabe Kidd gets the pin here. And obviously they win. And then they all continue to scrap afterwards. Continue to scrap afterwards. And so Eddie Kingston grabs the mic and is like, hey, Gabe, no ropes, last man standing match, resurgence on May 11th. And I'm assuming it's going to be for the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship. So that's happening.
No ropes has always just been such an interesting stipulation to me.
I said, is this like blood sport?
That was like, because that's the first thing that comes top of mind. And I don't know, man. It's hard for me to envision that matchup. Especially in that scenario. I don't know, man. I just think that this just wasn't for me. And I'm not looking forward to a continuation of it. So, but I mean, I hope everybody does great and has fun.
I'm not gonna lie, you're the first person I've ever talked to who like isn't gung-ho over this.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, I hate to be controversial.
It's okay. We all have our things, like, that don't do it for us.
You want me to lie?
No, actually, I really respect that. I really respect your opinion.
Thanks, Dad.
Moving on. Let's talk about a match I hate. Because I don't think it should have taken place in the first place. Now I get to be a hater. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Matt Riddle. I want to first say, Zack Sabre Jr., I'm so sorry, sweetie. You should have never been put into this situation. I am so
And can we please, for the sake of discussion about this match, I want to separate you from this. Zack Sabre Jr., you were here. You did great. You did your job.
Amazing.
I literally tweeted, I was like, the people's princess, you've won the belt and retained our hearts because we needed you in this moment. And they could never make me hate you.
They could never make me hate you.
They could never make me hate you.
But now. Matt Riddle.
Now that other man.
I will say this. Now I can say what I wanted to say earlier. I'm going to say it in the middle. I feel that New Japan was put into a situation, and I think that they were very scared. And I think that they had a heads up that Okada was leaving. They knew Ospreay was leaving. And I think that they just started making decisions and started bringing in these foreigners because they were scared. And they just assumed that bringing in all of these ex-WWE guys would be a success. And I'm not going to lie, none of them have particularly wowed. Now, some of them are definitely better than others, but I'm talking about being that wow, game-changing foreigner like Mox was in 2019, or like these like Mercedes, or like everybody that comes from national TV ain't great. And I mean that from AEW too.
Yep.
Because there's some people who have left AEW that, I'm going to be honest, I don't think they're particular stars. And that's why it didn't hurt AEW from losing them. Same thing like it didn't hurt WWE when they lose to certain people. Everybody who has been on national TV won't work for your audience, especially because different promotions value different things and have different priorities and different type of audiences and styles. And I don't think that Ali has particularly been a game changer for New Japan. I don't believe, but guess what? Ali doesn't really count here because guess what? He doesn't have a championship. I want to know whose call it was to put a championship on Matt Riddle. Because one, why? Seriously, why?
Two,
and
why?
Right. And then I think also too, and this one count, and some people are like, don't loop Nick Nemeth in with them. Don't get me wrong. Nick Nemeth, I think, is very talented, and Nick Nemeth is nowhere near as annoying. I don't find him annoying at all as Matt Riddle. However, I feel like a very bad message was sent by immediately strapping these guys up on their first tours. They haven't proved anything. They haven't even proved that they can wrestle the New Japan style. They haven't proved that they fit into this universe. Because guess what? All wrestling is not the same wrestling. What WWE does is not what AEW does. What AEW does is not what New Japan does. What New Japan does is not what CMLL does. And so it's almost insulting not only to the talent that you have, but to the audience that you have, that you slot these guys in and immediately give them the title. And I also like to say this. Zack Sabre Jr. went 7 years never winning a singles title in New Japan. When he finally does, he becomes the inaugural New Japan World Television Champion. He holds that belt for 1 year, and he makes that belt so prestigious. So prestigious. The way that everybody talked about Orange Cassidy's first international title reign, the way that everybody talks about Gunther's intercontinental title reign, Zack Sabre Jr.'s TV title reign was up there. He defended that belt everywhere. The matches were amazing. They were well done. And he's one of those people, keep in mind, where this was a challenge for him. Because Zack Sabre Jr., when it comes to wrestling, he's long-winded. He's almost like an Okada in the sense of typically he's going 20 minutes
long ass matches.
His conditioning, exactly. His conditioning is excellent. And so he managed to condense his style into 15 minutes or less and excelled.
Let me say this, right? You're the critical thinker of the two of us. I just we've discussed. I just say whatever I want, and I probably shouldn't. So in the interest of not drawing more negative attention to you, I'll just say, Matt Riddle, I don't give a hell about your wrestling style. I don't care what you did in that ring, because the things that you have been allegedly involved of outside of that ring, I do not
dirty feet.
You. I do not respect you. I will never cheer you. I don't want you around. All right. And so in my ideal wrestling program, you are nowhere to be found, and it has nothing to do with your talent. That and that's the nicest way that I can put it. And Zack Sabre Jr., love
You're
you.
amazing.
Love you. You're doing great, sweetie.
Exactly. I completely agree with everything that you said. They put the title on Tanahashi, which I was fine with. One, because I got to see a Hiroshi Tanahashi title victory at Wrestle Kingdom in person. But two, it felt like this is finally going to catapult Zack into, that world title scene, which we clearly haven't seen yet. And one, you win it off my ace and he gets injured in the process, and you get to keep this belt with your dirty feet. Your dirty feet.
Your grubby, sticky hands.
Grubby, sticky hands. I hate to get like this. And I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those people. This might suck. This might sound terrible. But I have a habit of wanting all the wrestlers that I just don't want to deal with to just go to promotions that I know I don't watch. And so I feel like what's starting to happen is a lot of you are getting cut from your promotions, and you're starting to try to come in on my territory, my casa, and I will not have it. We will not have it.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I don't know where you're going to go. GCW is hiring. TNA is hiring.
Hey.
Just stay there.
Just
stay there. And the thing is, I feel like New Japan has a lot going on right now, so they're very vulnerable right now. So they should not be trusted to make any type of alternative decisions.
That's really what it is. That's really it. If New Japan is in such a vulnerable state that, like you said, they went and they signed everybody they thought that AEW wouldn't sign, or or couldn't or didn't want to.
They said we know they go ahead and not go take this way.
Exactly. Which is cool. Which is cool. And I understand the thought process behind it, because if nothing, you get some name recognition. I get it. But
our name recognition, not good name recognition. It's one of those things.
And Matt Riddle is a prime example.
It's certain people, if they left WWE right now, I think that New Japan should hop on, right? So, who's one of those people? Ilya Dragunov would do great. Beautiful in New Japan. Drew McIntyre, Sheamus. Who else is a good one? Chad Gable. Right? I mean, they're real hoopers that New Japan fans, if they found out we're signing New Japan right now, I mean, we would line up like it was a shrine. Matt Riddle was never one of those people. You have never, I'm gonna be honest, I think that's the thing. It's almost insulting because I know for a fact you've never seen it. You've never seen the tweet saying, oh my God, when they got that, you never saw a tweet. You never saw a chick saying, oh, when he got released, oh, he needs to be in New Japan.
You know that video of from Real Housewives? You just made that up. Made that up.
And now we gotta sit here and hear all these like hear everybody trying to like dress it up on commentary and shit. No.
And put your damn toes away. You
where
nasty,
your Nike slides to the ring?
Nasty man.
Where your Nike slides to the ring?
Get your feet away from me. Yeah, that's all. I don't want him to exist in my brain space.
But luckily, guess what? He probably won't because I'm thinking he was defending the title at places that he wasn't supposed to be defending the title at, and that's why New Japan doesn't even recognize those defenses, like just defending them at these random indies. But Zack Sabre Jr. has reclaimed the belt as the good Lord intended, and it seems like Riddle is done with New Japan and good riddance. Amen. So Jeff Cobb has emerged as the next challenger. And let me say this. Zack Sabre Jr. and Jeff Cobb have not had a bad match. However, they've had too many matches.
Too many. Yeah, I was going to say.
So if Jeff Cobb is the next challenger, he better fucking win. And Zack better finally go into the world title picture. Because if we're just running this match back just to run it back, no, I can't take it. I just can't. Enough. Okay? So, like, if Jeff Cobb isn't finally going to win, we don't need to be doing this. And Zack, you should have never had to be in this position in the first place to have to right the ship. People don't deserve to. We like New Japan truly, and I'm gonna be honest, we need to have a talk about Zack Sabre Jr. It don't have to be today, it don't have to be tomorrow.
But damn it gotta be soon.
Because at the end of the day, this is a man who is Zack is what 36 now? 36, 37 now?
I'm not sure.
He's flat out told you he wants to finish his career there. He wants to be the guy for you. He wants to put the weight on his shoulders. And guess what? Well, Ospreay told y'all the same thing. And he said, pick me. Put the world on my shoulders.
Choose me. Love me.
Choose me. Love me. Put New Japan on my shoulders. Let me be the guy. Let me carry it. I want to do this. And what did you do? You put the title on Sonata. That is exactly what happened. And that's why it's one of those things to where people are just like, oh my gosh, AEW, talent poaching, etc. A lot of these things could have been
when you do shit like that,
because
that make nigga want to leave.
Zack Sabre Jr. has rejected contract offers from every major company because he wants to stay in New Japan. He doesn't want to go to other companies. However, as a fan, my patience is way wearing very thin of y'all not finally, making him a world champion. So I can only imagine with this. And as he gets older, like I said, he's in the prime years of his career. Everybody knows like that sweet spot for a wrestler is between of the prime is anywhere between, let's say, 35 to 45. He's in it.
Yeah, he's
he
36.
wants to spend those prime years with y'all. But if y'all don't really if you don't plan on making him a top guy,
you gotta set him
top guy.
You know what it is? It's like
don't be surprised if he becomes all elite, y'all. Just saying.
He's ready to get on one knee, and y'all sitting here talking about, I don't know if I'm ready to commit.
Exactly.
We're in two different.
And y'all been together for 8 years.
We're having two different conversations. What do you mean you're not ready to commit?
And New Japan talking about some. Listen, I'm just trying to vibe. We vibe.
I just want to keep my options open. Like I'm not trying to be tied down to nothing. I love you. Okay.
Zack Sabre Jr. has done, and the thing is, everybody says, well, foreigners, you always expect them. He's done everything that you could ask a foreigner to do. He's committed. He's lived in Japan. He's learning the language. He's learned a good bit of the language. He is fully committed in a way that you say that you want your foreigners to commit. He gives you amazing performances. You used to say he was so skinny. Guess what? He put on muscle. He became a heavyweight. He's done every single thing that everybody said he needed to do. He changed up his look. He became a faction leader. He took a title that didn't exist and made it important. And so this time next year, if he plans on, setting his sights elsewhere, I don't want to hear a conversation be like, well, he was stolen.
This is the ultimatum. You ever seen that show on
exactly.
Netflix? Well, if you're not ready, you have got to let him go.
Exactly.
Because he is him for somebody.
He is him. And I'm gonna be honest, y'all might say whatever y'all want about that billionaire Tony Khan. Good thing. Wait, listen. He got a checkbook and he ain't afraid to use it. And also he got titles and he not afraid to strap y'all up. Okada got strapped up in 2 weeks.
Immediately.
And had
here's a belt.
And got millions in his pocket. Mm-hmm. Millions in his pocket. He said, you want to make it rain for real? I make the dollars and the yens rain. Okay. And so just wanted to put that out there. Next, we have 2 more matches left. Another match that's kind of like this. We have Nick Nemeth versus Tomohiro Ishii. Now listen here. Tomohiro Ishii is the all caps litmus test to see if you can hang in New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you can have a good match with Tomohiro Ishii, you can stay. I will say this. I was not particularly impressed. I'm not saying it was a bad match. It was not a bad match at all. It was a decent match. However, for people who have seen a Tomohiro Ishii match, this was 100% on the lower end of Tomohiro Ishii matches.
Sometimes I say it on Black Girl Wrestling, but I think I have a really harsh criticism unintentionally, which is I don't remember anything about it.
Me neither. I can't tell you anything that happened in that match.
Anything about it.
I
know Ishii was there and I popped huge.
Yes.
And then absolutely no memory of what came after that.
And that's not good. And you want to know why? What makes it even worse? And somebody was trying to argue with me on Twitter about this. Well, sometimes it's great when different styles mesh, etc. Blah blah blah. And maybe he doesn't have
sometimes
to
not today.
He doesn't have to wrestle the New Japan style, etc. Yeah, sometimes, but guess what? You on your first match in New Japan, you won the number 2 belt in the company, which is derived from the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship.
You gotta show me a little something.
Was almost an evolution. The other top 2 belt in the company a long time ago was the Intercontinental Championship. So the thing is, guess what? Do you believe? I have not seen one match yet on the caliber of any of those IWGP US Heavyweight Championship matches. No. You want to know what the match that happened last year for IWGP US Heavyweight Championship? Guys, we saw Will Ospreay versus Shota Umino. We saw Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. Everybody's not Will Ospreay. Everybody's not Will Ospreay. 100%. However, I'm gonna be honest. Nemeth, very nice guy. I think that in the WWE style, he was excellent. He's a perfect sports entertainment wrestler. He is the perfect sports entertainment wrestler. Perfect. And I feel like WWE did not live up to his best potential. 100%. He should have had way more world championships than he did. But here, he's not him.
I honestly, I was sitting there watching that match, and I wish I cared. I did.
Me too. And the thing is, here's the thing. I don't want to come off as one of those people and just be like, oh my gosh, you just hate everybody from WWE. Quite the contrary. I actually get really excited for wrestlers who have been wrestling one style their entire careers to try something
else. Yeah.
Because guess what? We've seen a lot of success stories.
Yeah.
We've seen some great success. John Moxley is one of them. Mercedes is one of them, right? Mm-hmm. Adam Copeland has completely revised himself, in AEW. So, like, I live for a good WWE to other places success story because I feel like a lot of times people can't be confined in the box and need to be unleashed. Mm-hmm. But my thing is, some of y'all been talking about like you getting unleashed. I was expecting a tiger and I'm seeing cat. I thought I was expecting a claws.
Damn. Y'all been talking like Beyonce and moving like Michelle.
Well, even Michelle found her lane.
LaToya.
When Jesus, I really like LaToya. I do.
You look like you like LaToya.
What is that?
I don't know.
Her debut album came out torn in between the two. Because I really want to be with you. You didn't listen to that album?
No, I didn't listen to that album.
Oh, it I'm not gonna lie. During the 106 and Park days, that album went viral. That it was a pretty big deal on the R&B charts. Was it a crossover hit? No. And here's the thing. That's the thing. I think that's a really good example, right?
Not a crossover hit.
I think that's a great example. LaToya Luckett is an R&B singer. That's it. That's all she's ever going to be. Michelle Williams, she can do R&B and she can do gospel. That's all she's ever going to be. Kelly Rowland, R&B. That's all she's ever going to be, right? But Beyonce has no genre. Beyonce has no genre. That's the Shield. When we get to the Shield, we'll get there. Some of these guys are great. They can do different things. But Mox,
great gowns, beautiful gowns.
John Moxley can do not just some things. John Moxley can do everything.
This was John Moxley's country album.
This ain't Texas. Woo! Okay? And so that's the difference between, in my opinion, great wrestlers and going back, A tier and S tier. That's what separates A tier and S tier. A tier wrestlers are at the very top of their company, etc. But can we honestly say that they can do what everybody else is doing? If we had a forbidden door right now with the other companies, can I really trust you to be able to hold your own against everybody else's best? No.
Or even
and that's about Nick Nemeth.
I mean, I'll leave it alone. I was gonna say, but even like, if I was putting together a card, even a New Japan card, whether you have a belt or not, even in a New Japan that is more scarce of talent than it has been in the past, I'm not sitting there counting down the seconds for a Nick Nemeth match in 2024.
And I think even a more direct example, if he's still holding that global heavyweight championship by Forbidden Door, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not fantasy booking anybody, especially if he doesn't, especially if they plan for him to retain. No, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like that's a waste of a singles match. Forbidden Door. I need the baddest helpers on the floor. That's it.
The heifers on the
That's all I want to see. And so there's that. I'm gonna be honest. Ishii test failed.
I mean,
and last but certainly not least, we had the main event.
No shade. We don't hate you.
So John Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito was our main event. You know, I will say the matches, I kind of wish that the card was smaller, simply because, you know, we went through these big periods of excitement, and then like the 2 matches before this were duds, to be quite honest. But thankfully, there's nobody like the ace of the universe in Tetsuya Naito who has generational riz to really get the people going, get the people back excited, to really get the people back invested. I will say Death Rider makes me feel things. Like, Death Rider is 100% probably one of my favorite pro wrestling themes. It's one of those things where people can call me lame for this. I ain't gonna lie. I got to save it on my phone. I do. It's in I have a pro wrestling themes playlist. It's on there. I don't even listen to Wild Thing, honestly. It's really Death Rider. I just feel like it's just like so. I feel like it's it's just like those strings. I'm also like a big music head. My name is Lyrics, so that, you know, it shouldn't shock people. This match made me very, very happy. Very, very happy in the way. Very few things in pro wrestling do. It's one of those things to where I feel like sometimes, especially now since I've become a podcaster, since I've become a writer, I think that I always have to a lot of times look at things objectively, always think about things in the context of the story, of like, oh, what's going to happen next, etc. But I rarely sometimes get to sit in the moment and just be a fan and just be a girl. I don't know, just be a girl. And I didn't expect, when that bell rang at the end, I just started crying. Like, I legitimately started crying. And it was really weird because, like, it's not like I'm not an emotional person. I'm a Pisces, but when it comes to wrestling, very few things moves me sometimes. But John Moxley really moves me. He means a lot to me. Like, he means a lot to me as wrestlers. He's in my top 3. Like, him, Moxley, Mox, Omega, Shibata, not in that order, really mean a ton to me, of like, inspire me not just as fans, but also as like, as even now as a content creator, as I try to like blaze my own path and like do things my way, I look up to people who have really carved their own way in the wrestling world and don't follow the rules and don't like adhere to the status quo. I really respect Mox a lot. And so this made me cry. Wrestling made me cry. And also, like, the actual match banged. And in my opinion, it was Naito's best performance of this reign. Yeah. That's all. That's what I got.
This main event, I loved it so much. It felt like what a main event is supposed to feel like. You know, sometimes
Yes.
you watch the entirety of a show and you just get to like the last match instead of like something that feels like a next level other tier main event. And this absolutely felt like that. Moxley is, well, first let me start with Naito. He has been another, absolute like cornerstone of New Japan. Another, just cannot overstate how important he has been to that company and continues to be. And so it was really, really cool to see him Yeah. But I think it's really cool because Naito's been so important to New Japan. It's really cool to see him be as important in the US iteration, and on these big, massive US shows. So I don't know. I always just think it's cool when people who have put the time in, put the work in, and been so important somewhere, get their due on the biggest of stages. So I just think it's really cool that he was able to do this. And I loved the match. I thought that the match did something that a lot of other matches on this card, matches on this card kind of struggled to, which was build. The pacing of the match made sense for considering both the people that were involved, and it, like I said, it just built one on top of the other of in drama, and you started biting on every near fall, which was not something that we necessarily saw throughout the course of the rest of the show. It made the main event feel different, and I think that's a testament to one, how New Japan treats that belt, because aside from a few notable exceptions, it is a big deal. It is a massive deal. And to even be sniffing around the title picture is massive, and so I think it's cool whenever that like translates and comes across, if that makes sense. But yeah, like, man, Mox is different. He's different. He not like the rest of y'all, okay? I just I've been thinking about it a lot because we'd all entertained the possibility of, the belt going on to Mox. But I don't think I was fully convinced until I was sitting there that it was actually something that was going to happen, because to me it made sense in theory. Mox could be the world champion in theory, for New Japan. It didn't click for me until I was sitting there and I was like, no, he's right in there. Like, to your point, he doesn't feel like an outsider coming in to win this belt. He feels like, and that we're just handing it off to. And I think that's a testament to the work that he's done, in AEW and in New Japan beforehand, where it's just like, it won the general belief that you're sticking around for a bit, especially knowing the working partnership between New Japan and AEW. But also, it feels entirely deserving. Like, it makes sense for you to be up here. It makes sense for you to be in this conversation, which or other people on this card, or you can make the argument that same thing was not true. Mox is just, and his style that he's developed since leaving WWE just translates so well, because it continues to evolve. And I see a lot of people, like, I think one argument you can make about a lot of people in wrestling is just in relation to, their stylistic choices and maybe things getting stagnant and this, that, and a third. What Jon Moxley does well, he has perfected. And what does not click in one place, he will find a way to make it click in another. Yes. And most people can't do that.
I remember when Mox was in WWE, it was towards the end of his run. I remember he went on Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold. And Stone Cold, I remember him telling him, like, well, you're supposed to be like this lunatic fringe, this unhinged person. Like, we haven't seen it. What's so unhinged about you? And he was just like, nah, I can't do it, man. I just can't do it here. I feel like I'm trying, but etc. And like we said earlier, of leaving WWE for some people can either be a death sentence or it could be an opportunity. And we've seen him maximize his game at every turn. Even the wrestler that he was when he first became AEW champion, he's so much better than he is now. And for me, personally, 2022, he was my most improved wrestler. Like, him coming out of rehab and being 10 times the wrestler he was before, completely changing up his game, developing his own style of wrestling, death jitsu, like, going on the indie run as one of the best wrestlers, most popular wrestlers in the world, forming the Blackpool Combat Club. And it's clearly not even just a gimmick on TV. This is a lifestyle. They're genuinely training together. They're getting better. Everybody is elevating.
Niggas have a book club.
Yes! That's so cool. Claudio trying to start a coffee club. Like, for me, like,
we should read this one. This one's called "Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders?"
Oh, wake that up. That's the tea. That's the tea. And honestly, I truly want to embody that Blackpool Combat Club. And at least for me, like, that's how I approach wrestling. That mindset of surround yourself by people who are constantly sharpening iron. How do we get better? How do we push the industry forward? How do we push each other forward? How do we push ourselves forward? How do we constantly evolve? How do we constantly learn knowledge, give knowledge, create knowledge? I truly, from a philosophical perspective, like, love these guys. And I think Naito's clearly not in the same physical state as he once was. He's clearly not at his peak in-ring conditions, but I feel like this match was perfect for him to where this is the first match where it didn't constantly feel like, oh my gosh, Naito's knees are shot. Naito's knees are shot. And I think that's a credit to him. And I think that's also a credit to Mox of like being able to work a style that complements his opponent rather than points out their weeknesses. This felt
and brutal. To Naito's point, to Naito's credit, he put his boots on. You know,
he did. He did put them working boots on. And I think the thing is, Tetsuya Naito, I've said it and I'll say it again. When you look in the dictionary, the word charisma, there's a picture of him directly next to it. The way that he captivates, nobody could do it. Even at the press conference, being that close to him, when he walks into a room, my breath was taken away of just that type of aura, like real aura, not them LED lights, pyros and stuff, real aura. It's real. And like I think that Mox deserves, if you think about, he's one person that he could have easily been something different than what he is today. Just
absolutely,
you know, struggling with addiction. Let's just think, most wrestlers don't come back from that. Let's just start. Will lose their life, end up losing their wife, their kids, end up broke. How many dark side of the ring episodes have we seen? And for him to go through that and emerge victorious, not just as a person, but as a wrestler, and to continue to evolve and get better and push the industry forward, carry AEW on his back. And now AEW is finally in a comfortable place to have enough stars where he doesn't have to be at the forefront all the time. And for him to be able to explore some of his own passions. Because the thing is, it's the reason why there was a lot of outsiders on this card, but he didn't feel like one because New Japan is clearly very important to him. Like, just think about the match he had with Shingo earlier this year. Absolutely incredible no DQ match. This was amazing, and it's always something about that final Death Rider. He put an extra bit of stank on it. He just I
didn't think that was going to be the finish. They really surprised me. I don't know why. I think in my head I was waiting for one more. So when they got to 3, I said, "Oh my god!" Literally, like, you can see, like, Brittany took a video. Like, my reaction was like, not that the belt went on him, but that it ended there. And I was like, when was the last time I was actually pleasantly surprised by a match ending? You know,
it felt like, it was one of those things to where, and you said this, but it felt like a main event. I don't think I've been that excited, that enthralled by a championship, a world title main event. And I know, like, for some people, like, maybe WrestleMania did it for you, and that's cool. But for what I look for in wrestling, of like that one world title main event that I'm genuinely invested in, I remember the first 10 minutes, I was dead silent. My stomach was turning. I was so nervous. Like, I was so nervous. Like, I felt like I was going to get in there. Yes, and I rarely get like that, of just really feeling like a kid. It reminds you of just like that anticipation of, like, because I feel like sometimes we know too much about wrestling. We know too much between the blogs and everything, the dirt sheets. We know too much. And one thing, Naito don't talk to the media like that unless it's paid for. John, huh?
I said we say as podcasters.
Exactly. Hey, but you know what though? I try as a podcaster, I try not to like you'll never see me in the scoops game because I don't want to know. I don't need to know nothing. If I can't see it on TV, I don't need to know. And I think
I'm
that
not
Mox
a
is one of those
journalist.
people.
I'm a yapper.
Yes, I'm a certified yapper. Period. And that's why I try to like correct people. Like I know people call me a journalist. Yes, I do interviews. Yes, I go to events in person, but journalist means that I'm trying to get scoops, at least sometimes the way that it's implied. And I'm not looking for scoops. I'm just genuinely trying to like, I'm just trying to vibe. I don't know.
But one more thing on that, just real quick, right? A lot of your favorite journalists aren't journalists either. They're just yappers that never mind.
That call themselves journalists. And now you're
just yappers that use a different title.
That's the tea. And I think that's
okay.
one thing that Mox does well. He doesn't give us social media. He doesn't talk to us a lot. And he's
anti-yapper.
You know, he's my Beyonce in that way of just, he doesn't talk to us.
This was his
he
Cowboy
doesn't
Carter.
Social media. Exactly. He gives us nothing but the music. He does CMLL. He does New Japan. He does the indies. He gives us different styles. He gives us range. He gives us everything except for access to anything else. And I think that that's a great idea. The same way. I think that's a great idea. He will give us.
We should all know less about each other.
We should all know less about each other. And I think it's the cool thing of like they released a mini doc before it about his road to this. Like, this isn't a guy who doesn't care about New Japan. He put himself in a fight camp. Like, you even see Renee said, I'm not gonna lie, I wake up next to him, I said, shit, I need to work harder. Like, why am I not working harder?
He got a grinding. Hold on.
He kind of working hard. Why don't I work harder?
I don't know.
And that's just so real. And I think Renee is one of the hardest working women in America. So it's just like, oh my gosh.
Grind runner.
It's one of those things to where I think from a balanced perspective, I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of us aspire to, of like, one, to be able to go after your dreams, and two, having a support system that one encourages you, motivates you, and then three, having the flexibility to like, not be limited to one thing, not be limited to one company, to like, and my personal approach to wrestling of just not be limited to anything. Do what the fuck you want. And Mox has embodied that while doing it at a very high level. And Naito, seriously, I will say, but before I let you go, Naito is famous for giving us almost nothing on his US dates. Like, whenever he's America, he gives the girls nothing.
Give us nothing.
And we still eat it up because, like I said, that charisma lasts forever. Yeah, exactly. But he truly gave his all. He gave us everything. And I really appreciate that. And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, you were listing off things earlier that made Jon Moxley unique. And I agree with it. All of those things. You left off at flexibility. I will underscore talent, because a lot of y'all have the first three. You got a dream, exactly. A support system, and flexibility. And I don't even mean in a wrestling context. I mean like life
and life generally.
You got this head start. All right, you got the three. Talent is key. And he grinds to keep pace with that. He puts in just as much work as he has talent, and that is the key to me at the end of the day, and it's evident. But yeah, I just unfortunately, a lot of you guys have big dreams, whether it be professional, personal, this, that, or third. Y'all know I'm a hater. A lot of people have big dreams, have a support system, and there's no reason on paper why it doesn't work. But sometimes you're just not him. You're not Moxley. You're not Beyonce. You're LaToya, and LaToya can be great, but LaToya could have never made Renaissance.
And it goes to one of those things of just like we were talking about, like the other people in the card, especially like the recent WWE releases. Some people are good in some contexts, but the greats are great in every context. Can do, like, some people are the stars of their genre, but some people, the mega stars, can do. And wait, mega stars have no genre. Jon Moxley is that person, and I feel like sometimes he doesn't get mentioned in some of these GOAT conversations because he's been too reliable. He's always there. He's always there. And I think, you know, these last couple of weeks of not having him at AEW, I feel like some people realize, wow, we take Mox for granted. He's always there, always dependable, always reliable. And not only does he do that, he gives. He gives. He, at this point, let's just be real. He's at the point in his career, and he doesn't have to work with anybody he doesn't want to work with.
He probably don't have to work at all.
Like, even that part too. And so, like, even seeing this year in AEW, the limited work that he has done, who has he worked with? CMLL. He took a liking to Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty, said that I want to work with them and elevate them up the card. Guess what? Now they've been TV regulars. Even Mox ain't even on TV, but they are. It's that type of selflessness. That's the true ace. And I've said it. The ace might not always be the top star of the company. Sometimes they're the same person. Sometimes they are not. But the ace is willing to do whatever it takes. Sometimes that means be world champion. Sometimes that means that you need to be uplifting the younger talent. Sometimes that means that, guess what? We need you to go work with the international partners that we're working with. We're bringing CMLL in, work with them. We need to keep, we're trying to show people that the New Japan relationship is strong, work with them.
And this is the last thing I have to say, I think. It wouldn't be a true Danielle and Lyric collaboration if I didn't mention Kenny Omega. Talking about goats, talking about aces, talking about people that fit that description. And as you were listing those things, I was like, Moxley is all those things. And so is my goat. Yeah. Get better soon. I love you down. He's not related to this at all, but there's just nothing I will put on the internet without a Kenny Omega shout out. I'm sorry. That's all.
And I do think that he is related to this. I would say he is, because Kenny Omega, being who he was in Japan, taking that unorthodox experience of, he left WWE developmental to go to DDT, goes through DDT, goes to New Japan, inspires so many people to where people want to leave their company in their prime and say, I want to do what he's doing. I want to do it, G1. I want to do what he's doing. And then, he starts a company with his friends. And then Mox, decides to take a risk on this brand new place and say, oh, is this the future of pro wrestling? I want to do that. I want to do that. And I want to do New Japan. Kenny Omega is the catalyst for a lot of this. These two guys, in my opinion, go hand in hand. And that's why I think they have such great chemistry, as opponents, and they bring the best out of each other, because Mox was able to bring parts out of Kenny that we had never seen before, especially from a violence perspective. That Lights Out match is still one of my favorite matches ever. And so, even when it's not about Kenny Omega, it's always about Kenny Omega.
And that's always about Kenny Omega.
And that's why they're both my goats. And up there, and I own so much of their merch, and it doesn't make sense. And I'm going to buy more. I'm going to buy more. They mean everything to me. And I would like to say this about the after match, is that Mox using his post-match promo to immediately address all the concerns that people are going to say. And the first thing out of his mouth is that I am going to use this reign to uplift the younger talent. Wow. Mm-hmm. First person he says, Shota Umino, your final exam. First of all, that gave me chills.
Great
the
bar.
Final Exam, that's going to sell so many t-shirts. The Final Exam, that can headline shows. That's perfect framing. Then Ren Narita coming out made him look like a legitimate threat. Do you know how hard it is to make Ren Narita look like a legitimate threat in 2024? Do you know how hard that is? It's already helping. It's already uplifting the new generation. In one night of him having that belt, and no, not even that, in 10 minutes of him having that belt, look at how the younger guys were uplifted and elevated. Absolutely incredible. Nobody like Jon Moxley. I'm excited. I'm so excited, and it's one of those moments where I will say I've been able to be in the building to see a few of my faves win, like, titles, world titles. That one might be one of my favorites, if not my all-time favorite. And I can say that pretty decisively out of all the cool things that I've seen, and I've seen some cool things. But that was special. No bars. Mwah.
No bars.
That'll do it. Wow. So we've reached the end of our Windy City Riot recap. Wow, this went a lot longer than I thought, but we made it. Shout out to everybody who's listening to this full thing. If you want to hear more of us together, exactly, Yappers of the Year. If you want to hear more of us together, you can watch the Dynamite book out on every single Wednesday after AEW Dynamite on the Body Slam YouTube, which Dani and I host. Where can we find you?
You can find me at Black Girl Wrestling on Twitter and on Instagram and TikTok, and at Dani Don't Miss on Twitter.
Exactly. And you need to follow them. And I'm so serious, or else we will bully you. And you can find me at Lyric Wrestling on the Twitters and the Instagram. And you can subscribe on YouTube at Lyric Swinton. I hope that, like I said, I hope to have a lot more content out soon. I've been trying to really push myself lately to focus more on the podcast side of things, and like just really trying to figure stuff out in year 2 of what works, what doesn't work, what I want to continue, what I don't want to continue. I want to upgrade my podcast setup. It's a whole bunch of things that I'm thinking about, toying around. Like I said, I want to. Right now I'm poor, so we'll see when it actually happens. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. I am so excited. There's so much other stuff, so expect me to be talking about Dynasty, which is coming up. What else is coming up? Stardom All-Star Green Queendom is coming up, which is going to be huge. What else? New Japan Wrestling Dontaku is coming up. Best of the Super Juniors is coming up. There's a lot happening, everybody. So stay tuned.
So get ready.
I'll be covering it for real. Strong woman. But until next time, I shall talk to you later. Bye, everybody.